My name's Mike Pilavachi and I pastor a church in Watford, in Hertfordshire, just northwest of London, that 11 of us planted 21 years ago, and I'm still there. I also lead an organisation called Soul Survivor that mainly works with young people, but also others, and we run festivals and a whole load of stuff like that. And I spend almost half my year travelling in other countries, which is a wonderful privilege, and seeing what God's doing in many different places. Probably recently, the Lord's been speaking to me again. Sometimes it goes round in circles because I'm a bit thick. It takes me a while to learn. Again, about seeking His face and seeking to move in His power in the midst of my vulnerability and my brokenness, because that's how He likes it. And not to wait until I'm sorted before I'll step out, and not to wait until I'm sure and certain and full of faith and power, but in my brokenness to seek His face. And that's really the heart of it. And we might actually be talking a little bit about that tonight. I'm not sure, but it really hit me that in 2 Corinthians 11, Paul says that God's power is made perfect in weakness. And that means that God's power is not made perfect in our strength. If it's perfected in our weakness, then that's the place we want to be. Because it's about moving in His power and vulnerability. It's about moving in His strength and our brokenness. And that's actually what Jesus modeled. That's how Jesus did it. When God came to earth, He didn't blow us away. Well, He did, but not in the way that one would expect. He stooped to conquer, and He calls us to do the same. The lie that our culture is told all the time is that the greatest expression of love is sex. That's so not true. Jesus showed us that the greatest expression of love is sacrifice. Love is about sacrificing for others. God so loved the world that He gave. He gave. If we're going to look for self-fulfillment in our relationships, we're going to miss it. But if we deny ourselves for the sake of others, then we find it. And I love this story of two Moravian Christians a few hundred years ago, at the time when slavery was happening in the UK. And they saw a whole bunch of slaves that had no one to tell them the gospel, had no one to witness to them about Jesus. And they couldn't get there because they were free men. And these guys were slaves and you weren't supposed to mix, and they couldn't get to them. So do you know what they did? They sold themselves into slavery so that they might become like the slaves that they wanted to win for Christ. And that is following the example of our Lord, who, though He was in His very nature God, He didn't count equality with God something to be grasped, but He emptied Himself, taking the very nature of a servant. The highest moral imperative in our culture is freedom. It's all about our human rights, about our freedoms, about our this, our that. And freedom is important. Jesus said, if the Son shall set you free, you shall be free indeed. But for the Christian, there's a higher moral imperative than freedom, and that is love.